after the Civil War, many in the Black community were seeking every way possible to distance themselves from the memory of slavery. And that included the music of the slave community, the work songs, the spirituals, the Jubilee songs. They wanted nothing to do with that because they wanted now to be seen as equals by their white counterparts. So anything that would make them appear less than, they didn't want to sing. They didn't want to embrace. And then there's also the pain of slavery. People wanted to forget. And so a lot of people, that's one of the reasons why the Fifth Jubilee singers found it so difficult to sing this music initially, because first of all, it was a very private thing. This was something that was personal to who they were culturally. Because remember, outside of the slave community, no one had heard these songs before. So there was a very personal aspect to the music. And when they did sing it, they didn't want, there was the pain of the history, so they didn't want to sing it. So that's kind of a difficult question to answer. For those that continue to sing the music, it would have held some deep meaning and continued to spur on some of the feelings of resistance. And as James Cone puts it, the somebodyness of the slave. It would have spurred and sustained and supported that particular mindset. But prior, in the context of the slave community, these songs were songs partly of resistance, So to hear that Jesus conquers, Jesus stands in the face of adversity and stands up to those who would deny the human dignity of the person, who would deny the rights. The enslaved community would have found solace in this. They would have found inspiration in this.
And again, because they really saw themselves reflected in his plight.
Yes, absolutely. I like the way that Arthur Jones talks about it in terms of these figures as these heroic biblical figures, not only as ancestors, but these heroic figures were the ones that inspired the community. The Joshuas, the Daniels, the Davids, these were the biblical figures, those who faced opposition and were triumphant. And that's why they sang about them in their songs.
Jireh. Yeah. So I want to play you, may I play you a version of this song?
Absolutely, of course.
Okay. All right, here we go. I'm just going to play a little bit.
Ride on, King Jesus, no man can hinder me. Ride on, King Jesus, ride on, no man can hinder me, no man can hinder me.
What role does rhythm play in spirituals?
Rhythm is essential to all music of the African and African-American experience. And one can tie that to the drum. The drum is essential to cultural and musical expression of the African, and by transference, African Americans, because our culture comes from Africa. We inherited it. It was part and parcel of our heritage and experience. So Samuel Floyd talks about the essential three elements in African musical and cultural expression as the song, dance, and the drum. And all three are always present in any kind of celebration, worship, musical expression, cultural celebration, community celebration. And so what the essence of the drum is rhythm. The drum conveys rhythm. And so not only does the voice try to emulate the drum or the drum try to emulate the voice, but that kind of relationship is going to be inherent in the music. And so sometimes you find the rhythmic aspect in the singing because of the influence of the drum. And it pervades into all music of African-American expression, whether it's the spiritual, gospel music, jazz, hip hop, gospel, I've already said that, R&B, rock and roll, all of that has at its essence the drum. The beat is drive. Even if it's slow, the beat is what sustains and what drives the music.
So one version of Ride on King Jesus was sung by a volunteer army regiment of escaped slaves for the Union, which was run by abolitionist Army officer Thomas W. Higginson. Talk to me about what significance this would have taken on for them.
Well, one of the things that Wyatt T. Walker talks about as one of the properties of these songs, these spirituals, is the unique imagery he talks about of them. And so the Bible is fraught. It's just replete with all kinds of wonderful imagery. This song, Ride on King Jesus, harkens a lot to the image of Jesus as depicted in the book of Revelation, the last book in the Bible, returning during what would be either some people might call it the rapture, but as Jesus returns in a triumphant way, he appears in the air in a white garment, and on his thigh it says, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. But it's this white horse, this imagery of Jesus appearing in the middle of the air on this horse. And so certainly at that time, people weren't riding around in tanks. The horse was the vehicle. So they could certainly relate to that imagery of what one would use as not only a means of transportation, but think about it, only those who probably could afford and a certain status would be on a horse, because many of the troops, the regular troops, are walking, they're on foot. It is the what would you call those? The soldiers that had rank, your sergeants and your colonels and the majors, those who had status, those were the ones who were riding while everybody else. So that's a picture of status, of accomplishment, of respect. Because who is on the horse except for those who are leading, those who are in charge, those who have status, those who have position. So certainly I would think for these soldiers who are fighting literally for their own freedom, the freedom of their people, to think about this figure, this heroic figure, they have a kinship and an affinity for the image of someone who fights for the rights of others, one who defends those who are defenseless. And they could certainly see themselves in this image of Jesus riding triumphantly on a horse.